Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints. Just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Continuing our coverage of Deep Space Nine, we're up to Sanctuary, which is the 10th episode of the second season. It aired back on November 28th, 1993. Teleplay goes to Frederick Rappaport. Gabe Esso and Kelly Miles provided the story, directed by Les Landau. The teleplay Frederick Rappaport, his only other credit on DS9 is Move Along Home from the first season. We'll move past that. We'll say Sanctuary is about a group of refugees who come through the wormhole in search of Kentana, their fabled homeworld. We're joined by Clay to talk about this one. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited to be on this episode because I didn't realize it was going to be a sequel to Angel 1.
That's true, right? That's a good callback to the female-run matriarchy of Angel 1 is now basically you become a leper after a little while and you start shedding your skin everywhere, and then you end up here.
They've really updated their style as well, their clothing style.
Yeah, I wonder.
Although I was wondering if I'm hoping somewhere there's a deleted scene with one of the husbands where they're like, so. How did you guys get together? And he's like, he made me fuck her. That never gets old. I love that guy. I wish he did that in everything he was in.
Do you I guess it's not really attached to anything, so we'll do it in the intro here. The DS9 aliens, are they dumb, or am I just giving TNG too much credit with their alien design?
Are the alien designs dumb?
Well, the DS9 alien design so far really strikes me as like uninspired on some level. And I don't know if maybe I'm just going into it with like a TNG prejudice where I'm like, oh, all the designs on TNG are pretty good except for the black leotard guys in the season 7. But am I just, would you agree, or do you think that we're just sort of like asking too much of the show?
Well, at this point, you are 10 seasons of Star Trek in, which requires like 10, 11, 12 seasons of Star Trek in, counting DS9. And plus all the movies and stuff, and you've got to keep coming up with new shit. Eventually, you're just going to kind of run out of ideas, and it's just going to be like, what if... It's like, you remember the show Sliders?
Yeah.
You know, every time they slide into a different dimension where it's like our universe, but it's slightly different. And the first, like, season or so are all really cool. And then eventually by, like, season 5, it's like they show up in an alternate universe where, like, pants zippers work backwards. And that's the only thing that's different. And I think you just run into that where it's like, well, shit, we need to come up with a new alien that's, you can act through the makeup, and isn't...
There's a whole lot of them, so it needs to be easy to do.
Yeah, it has to be easy to do, and it has to be different enough that it's not a repeat of something else. And so then you end up with just like, what if we just spray them with latex and then like let it set poorly?
Yeah, it's like popcorn sealing, basically, from that stuff that you have to hire the government to come in and remove at this point. I was just gonna say,
I think it's probably a cross between like, you know, the Bajoran makeup is pretty great, actually, because it's so simple, but it's very recognizable.
Yeah.
And I think they're kind of caught between that and doing something like that, feeling kind of like might be phoning it in, or having to go the other way and do like a Ferengi thing. So it's like you got to find somewhere in the middle where it's something that you can do fairly easily that's, you know, not gonna bring everything down, but is still kind of unique. It's a tough needle to thread.
I think that I would just like if I was in the production team and they came in with like the makeup designer came in and was like, this is the test case, this is probably what they're gonna look like, I'd say just leave them alone. You like don't do this. Like, just make them humanoid. You know, I'm at a point in Star Trek where I'm not gonna ask questions if some human looking person comes through the wormhole and is like, we need to live over here.
Or they should just start doing like no, there's something weird about them, but it's under their clothes, so we're just not going to show it.
Right, exactly. Anyway, let's get to the episode. I'm going to take a break. We're going to play an audio clip, and then me and Clay are going to break down Sanctuary.
Are you one of the leaders of your people, Hanik?
Me? Oh, no. I'm little more than a farmer. I was just lucky.
How so?
I was the first one to find the eye of the universe.
You were looking for the wormhole.
We had heard about a great tunnel being discovered. We knew it must be the eye of the universe that would lead us to Kentana.
Quintana?
Kentana is the legendary home of the Skreans. It has always been portrayed in our sacred texts as being just beyond the eye of the universe. A planet of sorrow where the Skrean will sow seeds of joy.
I can't guarantee you'll find Quintana, but I can promise you that we'll help you find a home.
Okay, it's been a little while since we've recorded last, actually. We actually had like a true break. I lost internet. The snow came and killed all of half, or at least half of New England, so we're just out here in
I lost heat for like 4 days.
Oh, did you? Yeah. So we're getting back into it. It almost was a little break from Star Trek. I kind of forgot the last thing we did. The last thing we did was Second Sight, I think, which is the Cisco and the Ghost Lover story.
I'll be honest with you. Every time that I sit down to do one of these now, I'm like, oh, I wonder how many he's done since the last time I did one. And it was the last couple, it's been just me. So I was like, oh, he must be slacking.
It's stuff with no internet, and now that we're now that we're getting into what your sort of episode structure was supposed to be about Deep Space Nine, we actually have to wait around for you a little bit more, because I don't know if you caught,
don't put this on me.
They did mention the Dominion in this episode, but we'll get to that.
I did catch that, yeah.
So the Second Sight was just a bad episode. I think we forgot to rate it in our last episode, but it was a 1 for me. It's a terrible episode. Sanctuary is not a good episode, but it's an interesting failure of an episode, I think, on some level. And I'll start it off by saying that, before I throw it to you, the original ending of this episode was that the Skreans were allowed to live on Bajor and become like co-inhabitants with the Bajorans.
Mm-hmm.
They rewrote the ending, and I feel that they wanted to have this melancholy sort of ending. They wrote an ending and then didn't change anything else through the rest of the script. Like, they just sort of flipped to the ending on itself. And I feel that it's basically the fundamental problem I have with this episode, is that it's a lot of stuff going in a lot of different directions, and none of it really amounts to anything or makes sense in and of the total story that's going on.
Yeah. Excuse me. This was interesting for me because, when we started the show, I mentioned that the thing that made me hesitant about Deep Space Nine was that it seemed like all the episodes to me seemed like they were the episodes of TNG that I didn't like, that were just like diplomacy and people just talking to each other. And this seems like right in the pocket of one of those ones that I wouldn't like. But what I wasn't counting on is how much I've come to like Kira as a character.
Sure.
And so I was actually kind of interested in what she was doing and her relationship and with these aliens and stuff. And they had some kind of interesting stuff in there. I think the biggest misstep for me, though, is when it comes to the point of the Skreans.
I think they're called Skreans, yeah.
Skreans. When it comes to the Skreans saying, we want to live on Bajor, and they say no, the Skreans don't have any substantial argument why they should. It's just that they want to.
I think that to tie in, I think that the Bajoran argument is a very good argument for the reason that they should not live there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but the Skreans don't have, they have no counter argument, though. It's not like...
It only seems to be slightly religious. That's the only thing I could think of, is that they seem to have this prophecy that they're meant to live there, but they don't hammer that point home. I think they mention it twice, and then they kind of drop it.
Yeah, and it's never a question of they kind of at the end, the leader there says that, we could have helped you and we could have turned around, et cetera, but all of that is still speculation. There's if there had been some sort of hard evidence that the Skreans were referring to as to why they thought it would be successful, or just any sort of solid argument, I think it would have made the last third of the episode work a lot more. Because what ends up happening is they say they want to live there. The Bajorans give them a very good argument as to why they can't. And then she just says, but we want to. And then Kira says, nah, it's really not a good idea. And then she just turns on her. And they become they have this huge falling out. And I mean, if they had addressed some of the stuff that they bring up in this episode previously about how this main woman is now being tasked with leading the Skreans to the next part of their whatever.
Yeah, their journey, their spiritual journey.
Yeah, part of their journey. And how much pressure that's being put on her and how she needs this to happen, like that kind of thing, that would have worked too. But there's really no argument there aside from, I wanted to do this, you said no, and you betrayed me. It doesn't have anything holding it up.
No, I 100% agree. I think that it goes back to the ending. If they seem to have just flipped the ending to where they wanted the Bajorans not to allow them to live there anymore. So what it does is that the Bajorans, in my opinion, have a very good argument. If this episode is trying to convince you that taking in refugees is a cause, a noble cause that should happen, then the episode does a very bad job of making the refugees the ones that are in the wrong, or the ones that need that sort of assistance. Here they don't come across, because Starfleet has found them a perfectly good place to go.
Right.
It's not like the Bajorans aren't just being sort of xenophobic, which I thought the episode should have leaned into a little bit. Maybe the Bajoran religion wouldn't allow this to happen or something like that. You could have had these two battling religions going on there, where both of them, which would be tie in very nicely into the Middle East parable that we've got going. It's like two battling ideologies that both want to live in the same space.
Right.
And they don't do any of that. The Bajorans seem incredibly reasonable. They're like, hey, listen, if you come here, you might start dying, and we are in such bad shape, we can't help you. And we'd feel really bad if that were to happen. So maybe you should go to this other planet that's very nice, and Starfleet can protect you and everything like that. And
right.
As you're saying, they don't have an argument for why the Skreans would insist that they have to live there. And
keep going.
No, it's fundamentally just a very weak conflict at the heart of the episode. That they're doing a very annoying sort of Star Trek episode where they're bringing up this topic, but they're not really examining what they're talking about beyond just sort of a surface level examination of, refugees are coming in and we need to put them somewhere. No one here has really a bad time except for the Skreans, who seem slightly irritated that choice 1A can't be the one that they get. They have to take choice 1B. And that's not very good. And that's not very interesting as a viewer.
Well, and it's a little bit similar to the Khan situation from the original series, isn't it? Because at the end of the Khan episode, they basically give him what he wants.
Right.
And they send him to a planet that's totally fine. It's not like a shitty planet. It's just somewhere that's, a little bit hard to live on, but that's kind of what he wanted anyway. And he's still pissed off about it,
Yeah, right.
Although I guess technically at the end of that episode he's kind of fine with it, but he gets pissed off eventually. But yeah, it's I wish, I was hoping that they would have that thread to kind of really tie it together, just because there is so much going on that's like trying to analyze the concept of this mass amount of people seeking asylum somewhere else from like a bunch of different angles, all in 40 minutes. And it's difficult. Yeah. They kind of, I understand that, you got to hit a couple of them, but there wasn't, I think that works easier if you've got a nice, solid hook there at the end to really drive it home.
Well, I think that they also shot themselves in the foot here by the first 15 minutes dealing with the universal translator issue completely delays the plot from kicking off. There's no, the delay where they can't understand them adds nothing to the overall story. And it only sort of opens the episode as kind of like this farcical, weird comedy situation. And it doesn't make any sense why they had to do that. The cold open should have ended with them asking for asylum. You need to kick this episode right off to get to the point of what you're talking about. And it's one of those weird cold opens where They just come in and Cisco's like, I'm Commander Cisco. Welcome to Deep Space Nine. And then it cuts. There's like no hook there to really grab you with. And then they just waste all this time. They waste all this time going into not understanding what they are until they slowly understand. And then it's 15 minutes into the episode before you even have a understanding of what the conflict is.
I like the universal translator thing. If only because it reminded me. I don't know if we've talked about this before. Have you ever seen The 13th Warrior?
No, I don't think so.
Antonio Banderas. It's the Michael Crichton's plays this Spanish warrior who I think is captured or falls in league with the Vikings or something, and he clearly doesn't speak Norwegian or whatever they're speaking. But they kind of do this montage of him sitting around the fire listening to them talk, and as it goes, he keeps every now and then he's speaking English, like so we are seeing it through his language, and as the montage keeps going, more and more of the things that they are saying start being English, and eventually they all start speaking English, which is supposed to be him obviously understanding. Well, so it was similar to that, which I like.
Yeah.
Did bring up a question though. So is Doctor Who does the same thing with the universal translator, where it's like everybody's speaking in their own language, but we're all hearing it as though we understand it. Is that always how it's been in Star Trek? I don't think I've ever heard them mention it that way.
Yeah, that's always been a sort of software thing that's running on the computer. Yeah.
So everybody is supposed to be speaking in their own language, but it's coming across just as the way that you would understand it?
Yeah, I think
really?
so. Yeah.
I guess I never. I feel like I've heard the term before. Maybe I guess I just never really thought that that's what it was doing. That's interesting. Wonder how that works.
I guess maybe I was thinking of it as tended to think of it whenever they were talking to somebody on the view screen, it was translating. But no, because it must work. Because when they come over and they talk to them, it's fine. Which I guess my question would be, how does anyone learn to speak anything if these things are on all the time? Or maybe they're only on starships or something like that. Because if the universal translator was running all the time, you wouldn't be able to learn how to speak English. I think that's like too much biology or something going on there. But yeah.
And I mean, if you wanted to get really technical about it, every time that they go like, oh, do you want this Klingon food? Gach. It should be like, would you like some Klingon pizza?
Yeah. Would you like this Royale with cheese or whatever?
But that's, clearly none of this matters. But as far as the cold open goes, I agree. As much as I kind of liked the universal translator sequence, it doesn't really add anything. And the cold open itself, you were just talking about the last like 30 seconds of the cold open. This is a long cold open, and the only thing that happens is Kira has to go tell Bajor and Kenny G to start playing something that people can dance to. And it really is like, and that guy doesn't come in again until he drops off a mixtape with the Skrian woman. That I don't even know why he does that.
I liked that character until he gives a present that is him. Like he gives himself as a present. It's like, wow, what a cocksucker this guy is.
But yeah, the beginning I was like, what the hell's going on here? Because I was kind of rolling with it because, again, I like Kira, so I was kind of interested to see what was going on. But she wasn't really doing anything, except they were talking about how she was arguing with this council about, like, irrigation or something.
Yeah, the only reason I understand that to be existing is that they want to show that there's strife on Bajor, and maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to introduce people to it. Maybe I'm giving the writing too much credit there, but that was the only reason that I understood that scene was happening.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fine if you, like, cut right from there to them coming out of the wormhole, but it's like the strife on Bajor, then she has to go talk to Quark, who is pissed off because people are loving the elevator music too much.
Yeah. Rightfully pissed, I think. Rightfully
What's
pissed.
That?
I think Quark has a good argument.
I guess that guy was forced upon him, because otherwise I was going to say, well, that's his problem for booking him, because he should know his audience better than that.
We've never met that character before, so it seems like Kira did him a favor by getting him a job there.
Yeah. It would have been great if he was like, you want me to play something people can dance to, and she's like, yeah. And he's like, all right, and then he just starts laying down like Free Bird or something, like something like
no, it's
really
gotta be Careless
unexpected.
Whisper. It's got to be
or he just starts ripping out I Still Believe from Lost Boys.
Yep.
He tears off his shirt, and he's just got like chains on underneath it, and he's all oiled up.
Yeah, that guy. I mean, I wrote down in my notes, I have, it's a weird episode that has good scenes that doesn't really hold together. All the issues brought up, sexism, refugees, Bajor suffering, would have been a good focus, but the episode focuses on nothing. I have a list of like good scenes, which is the Bajoran interview with the aliens, the final 10 minutes, the Dominion discussion. Bad scenes, the music guy, Quark and Odo talking about Nog, which takes 10 minutes and does absolutely nothing, and then the ships shooting the other ship.
So it's the reverse, isn't it? It's Odo and Nog talking about Quark.
Oh, yes. Well, and then Quark kicks Nog out, and Quark and Odo talk about weapons dealing or something, which it falls into they always want to have a scene with those two. This one just felt particularly pointless. There's no reason for that to be happening.
A lot of, I should say, not much for Odo to do in this episode.
No, except they expose him as a little bit of, like, he is, it is possible to overwhelm Odo, is what you learn. Yeah, he gets stressed out about all the
bit of a control freak.
Yeah. I mean, I think that before we move on, I really wanted to hit the point of the refugee thing is a really good idea for this show. And I think it makes perfect sense with the wormhole. I think it makes perfect sense with what we're going to learn is going on the other side of the Gamma Quadrant. I think it makes perfect sense of a story that Star Trek could tell. I think it runs into a big problem. Being set in space, 3 million people on a planet is not a big deal, really. It's not like they're all trying to fit on the space station. You'd have to, it's very difficult to get a sense of this is too many people when you can easily find people a planet to live on. So the needs of needing to protect yourself from refugees doesn't really get a fair shake in this kind of story. And I don't think Star Trek would be really interested in telling that. It would be more interested in sort of helping the refugees. But
I thought that putting them onto the station thing was kind of interesting because it's like, why even let any of them onto the station at that point? Because they've got 3 million people, but then like 800 of them get to come onto the station for like a day and a half.
Yeah, and they don't buy anything. It's not like they're doing. It's not like they're doing anything. Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, they, the point is to show the tension that builds. Whatever. But I think if I had to guess, I would think that situation was probably a writing problem that they had to work out. Because it's like you want to have them on the station where you can see the influx of the people not causing havoc, but being an inconvenience which might breed xenophobia and that kind of stuff. But you also want to have so many people that it would be an inconvenience to put them on a planet. Because if it was just like, all right, the station holds 7,000 people total, right?
Yep.
So if it was like 3 ships worth of like 500 people, you could put them literally on any planet and it would not be a problem. You could drop them on Bajor, no problem.
Yeah. I even feel you could do that with 3 million. Like, and then
I honestly, I think you could, but I think it's an easier sell story-wise, 3 million than like 500 or 1,000 or something like that.
Yeah. I think that the refugee story is just not fleshed out enough. There's no debate between these two sides because the Bajorans have a very good argument not to do it. The Skreans don't really have any argument whatsoever as to why it should be. There's no bad outcome for the Skreans here. Which makes the ending all the less satisfying because it's like, why are you upset? Like, there's no reason for you to be upset. You got this thing. Cisco even has a line, I'm not sure I can help you find whatever they call their sort of like promised land. He's like, but I can't find you a planet.
Something like that?
Yeah, is Quintana, something like that?
Quintana.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the issue that I have there. And to tie into the refugee thing, Bajoran instability continues to make very little sense in the world of replicators.
Yes.
So I feel they really should have written something in as to the Bajorans being a little bit of Luddites or something and not wanting the technology to be influencing them, because it's very hard for me to have all these scenes of Bajorans talking about people starving and bad winters are killing the crops, and it's like Cisco, while they're talking, is walking over to this hole in the wall that magically gives him a cup of coffee whenever he wants it.
Yeah.
And I feel they really should have written the Bajorans to be more in a hard spot where they want to take control of the station, but they also hate technology at the same time. And that would be better.
It reminds me of, did you ever see Elysium?
I think so, yeah. Who's in that?
The Matt Damon, where he gets mech suit like bolted onto him.
Yep.
It has a similar problem that Elysium had for me, which is like they set up this world in Elysium where everyone on Earth is like poor and dying and sick, and they can't get any medical attention. And everybody who's floating in the crazy rich people space station has these machines that will just immediately fix any problem that you have. And there's this massive tension, and everybody hates everybody else. And I was thinking the whole time, just install like 100 of those machines, and you'll be fine.
Right. Yeah.
Take that technology down to the Earth and just give them like 8 of them or something, and everything gets better for everybody involved.
Yeah. No, I've never, for the Star Trek angle, I've never come across a convincing argument as to why, even if they send down 5 replicators, that should feed everybody, like in their major areas. Like if you just run the thing nonstop, put a dilithium reactor on that thing and just run them nonstop, and that'd be fine.
Here's a question. I was only thinking about this because I found it to be slightly irresponsible when I was thinking about it in modern, like, realistic terms. When they're walking the screens around the ship at the beginning, and then Sisko's like, hold on a second, and he goes over to the replicator and brings back, like,
burnt sticks, yeah.
Yeah, like fish sticks or something. And he's like, here, eat this. And in my head, I was like, whoa, you don't know what these people are, like, allergic to.
Yep.
What might... But then I was thinking, well, if it's a replicator, then everything is synthetic. So does that mean that food allergies are not a thing? It must mean that food allergies are not a thing, right?
Yeah, I guess it depends how accurately they're reproduced. I guess you could be allergic to a synthetic thing.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh, that's interesting, yeah.
You'd have to... Yeah, maybe they should have written an episode about, like, a food allergy due to the replicator. It's just everyone gets, like, mild diarrhea or something for the entire
Or like
show.
O'Brien. O'Brien should be allergic to the food replicator, so he has to eat, like, K rations or something.
Yeah.
So he's just, like, horribly... Just another thing to make him grumpy all the time. So, like, Keiko is making beautifully replicated, like, Asian cuisine, and he's, like, eating out of one of those, bags with the powdered ice cream in it.
It's just a lot of things of, like, shields are dropping, and like his stomach is gurgling in the background or whatever, and just stuff like that.
We need to add more power to the engine room, and he's in the bathroom just shitting his brains out.
We haven't had a lot of O'Brien. He does just a lot of sort of delivering information while touching the keyboard in this episode. So we haven't seen much of him recently.
I really enjoyed him in this episode, only because he didn't do a goddamn thing. Where he was like, there's a certain point where he walks in and or he's sitting down, and I think Kira walks in and he says something to her, and then she like either answers him or ignores him, and he just kind of sits there quietly. Is like, all right,
yeah, do whatever.
Back to my data entry, I guess.
Yeah, so when he tells her that Quark is looking for her, and she's like, oh, and O'Brien's just like, well, back to this Rolodex. Yeah. The major scene that I can think of is the ops scene where the female Screen is explaining the situation, and they're all sitting around it. O'Brien is there. Mm-hmm. They bring in another, like, it's another sort of tangential, meaningless thing. They bring in the fact that this society is dominated by women. And, it's like, I'm in a rock and hard place here. Like, when I say that I don't like that, I'm sure a criticism would be like, well, in this alien universe where there's so many kinds of societies, of course some of them are going to be matriarchal. And I'd say, of course. And, like, I would totally understand that happening. However, it's inefficient in Star Trek episodes when you bring up stuff like that, and all it does is serves to waste 5 minutes of screen time.
Right. Yeah.
It's
if you're thinking about it purely economy of storytelling, then it's completely useless. Like,
right.
it plays into nothing for the rest of the episode. Like, even in the relationship that she has with Kira, there's no except for the part where Kira basically says she hasn't had sex in a long time. And then she's like, well, you should get 2 husbands then.
You got to catch up.
Aside from that, like, there's really, it doesn't, I don't know. There's no, the only other time it really comes up, but it doesn't come up in a substantial way, is when, afterwards, when, I can't remember if it's before that scene or after that scene where the Skrean leader there is sitting with her, other compatriots, and they're like, you got to lead us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if it was just they did it for the sake of doing it, or if they did it because maybe it made her relationship with Kira a little bit easier, because isn't Kira kind of like de facto a Bajoran leader? I can't remember.
She's
got a lot of pull, right?
Yeah, she's the representative to Starfleet from the Bajoran government, basically.
Yeah, maybe they were thinking along the lines of that. Like it would be easier to have her have a relationship with another female leader who is making hard decisions for her people, kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe, but they don't even have the Angel One thing where it's like the matriarchy is like an abusive matriarchy. Like
yeah.
I mean, it's unfair for the screens that the women are all in control, but you never see them like mistreating the men or having like disrespectful attitudes towards men.
No, it just seems to be fine.
Yeah, they just like, it's just women like to basically be in charge and the men like to fight each other. That's the way it is. And maybe if, you'd have to rewrite the whole thing, but if the Bajorans were like a patriarchy, maybe it would make a little bit more sense of the clash between the two cultures or something, but it doesn't have, it's really annoying when the episodes do things like that, because when I'm watching it, and especially in a show like this one, where you're trying to get across this big idea that you should really be focusing on this refugee aspect, you're just wasting time by introducing all this other stuff into it.
Yeah. I think that's, it's weird. I mean, I agree. I don't think it was necessary to do it. I mean, I'm not pissed that they did do it, because like you said, it's not bad that they did it. It just, it's economy of storytelling wise, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Or build it into part of the story.
Yeah. And it seems to be just another symptom of this episode of it's like a bunch of ideas just kind of thrown together. Yeah. The most egregious of which being oh shit, we realize that nothing has actually happened in this episode. Let's have someone steal a ship and then get blown up off screen.
Totally pointless. It's also so melodramatic that I was cringing a little bit during that, where she's like, Tomo, turn back. Turn your engines off.
It's not even like they have a scene, because he doesn't respond to the communications. It's just her yelling into. It's like a play. Yeah. It's like watching a play, and then like it's literally watching a play, and so you get like three people looking at a screen. One of them's yelling, and then nothing's coming back, and then someone else has to go, the ship has exploded.
Cisco's whispering, tell him to turn his engines off. He'll listen to you. Just turn your engines off. Yeah, and it's just. And at the end, they also kind of pussy out where the Bajorans don't even really kill them. They're like, we fired a warning shot and it accidentally triggered their like plasma leak or something. It's like, at least have the Bajorans kill them, so that there's a little bit of tension between these two. But it's an unfortunate accident that's so horrible and melodramatic and really has nothing. It adds nothing. We don't like that character, who is Walter Koenig's son, actually.
Yeah.
Who killed himself, I guess.
Also known as, is it Boner from Growing Pains?
Yeah, he's Boner from Growing Pains, yeah.
And he also was in one of the first fan films I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
Called Batman Dead End, where he played the Joker, and he was actually a really good Joker. If you could find it, check it out if you haven't seen it, because it does not end the way you think it's going to end. I'll put it that way.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much... That's pretty much it. The only other thing is that this is the second mention of the Dominion. You missed the first mention of the Dominion, which was in Rules of Acquisition, which was a Ferengi-centric episode where the Ferengi were trying to set up trading outposts in the Gamma Quadrant, and they came across an alien species that said, if you want to trade in the Gamma Quadrant, you have to deal with the Dominion. And that was the only time that we've heard them mentioned before then. They're brought up here as a group that have conquered other races in the Gamma Quadrant and sort of enslave them. And that's pretty much it. They play some dramatic music and end out.
I'm going to be really upset if the Dominion shows up and they're not just like a Queensryche cover band.
I know, right?
Like, I feel like if they ever put this out on Blu-ray, they should have an option where anytime someone says Dominion, it's followed by like a guitar squeal.
Just a guitar riff. Just, wow!
Dominion!
What do you think of the name? For that, like, I know that when they were sitting there, right, they're like, okay, over the course of season 2, we're going to introduce the adversaries that are going to go on for the rest of the series. We don't want to spell out too much about them, so let's give them a pretty, like, emotionally driven name.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the name has to inspire feelings of not goodness, basically.
Yeah.
And
But it can't be too on the nose.
Right. And I feel Dominion is actually slightly, maybe Dominion isn't too on the nose. I feel it's slightly on the nose. I feel they could have come up with a better name for them, but it is what it is at this point.
I like it. I think it's better than one of the things that I hate more than anything is when people come up with, or when shows or stories come up with like really abstract names for people or groups.
Like the Circle earlier in the season?
Yeah, or like, the Others or some shit like that, where it's like you just didn't commit to coming up with a name for them.
Yeah.
You're trying to keep it mysterious, but it's like, we can't handle with those who cannot be seen, that kind of shit.
Yeah, Harry Potter, those who shall not be named or whatever.
Well, that's different because, that's...
He has a point.
I think that
to
works.
that.
But, it's... I just don't like it when they're kind of wishy-washy. It's my same problem that I have with the idea of prophets, where it's just like it's I understand in the context of the story it is literally prophets and a prophecy, but it's that kind of stuff to me always screams like, we didn't really figure out what we wanted to call this and what we're going to do with it, so we'll just make it something kind of vague.
Yes,
Dominion I think is a pretty good name. It's kind of vague, but it also, like you were saying, it brings up
sounds
clear,
insidious.
Yeah, negative overtones. It's I kind of feel like in the first script that they were in, the writer might have written in like the Empire and then wrote a note like get thesaurus, find synonym for Empire.
Yes,
I think it's a good choice. I think it may, I don't know, would you prefer something like more specific or like an alien race name or something?
No, I don't think so. But you'll like, we will learn the Dominion are a group of species. So they have to give them like an overriding name. They say that in this episode that one of the members of the Dominion are what conquered her planet.
I see. Like, so in this situation then, I would have liked it a lot less if it had been like the Council.
Yes.
Like that kind of like vague bullshit name.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we'll learn the names of everyone eventually, of the different species. But yeah, it's I think I like it more as it goes on. Like, I don't mind the Dominion eventually, but it definitely just feels very writerly to me that they wanted to make sure that people realize that this was not a good thing, even though they're talking about this group invading other planets and stuff. But we'll get to it.
It is fun to think about the ways that they refer to them and just replace it with like a guy's name.
Yeah.
So it's like we were driven out, we were set free when our captors were defeated by Chris.
By the Souths. By the jumps. We'll have to we'll get to it. There's one more episode where they're mentioned, and then we meet the Dominion at the end of the second season. So I guess that's it. We're going to take a break.
That's when our people were freed by the Sapersteins.
What's that guy who got? Was it the Rothschilds, that DC politician who got in trouble for like a Jewish conspiracy theory, like that? I think they're called the Rothschilds or something like that.
Yeah, part of the Pentaveret.
Yeah, sure. So we are going to take a break, play an audio clip. Me and Claire are going to come back, read some patron thoughts, give our thoughts, and then call it a day.
I just stopped by to wish you luck, Andre Lanto. Anik, I still believe this is the best choice. For Bajor and for you.
You still believe we would have been a burden to your people?
Yes.
I think you've made a terrible mistake. All of you. Maybe we could have helped you. Maybe we could have helped each other. The Skreans are farmers, Kira. You have a famine on your planet. Perhaps we could have made that peninsula bloom again. We'll never know, will we? 50 years of Cardassian rule have made you all frightened and suspicious. I feel sorry for you.
All right, so here we go with some patient thoughts. As always, if you guys support the show at patreon.com/the Pensky File, you can give a couple $2 a month. You get a bunch of stuff. You can listen to extra podcasts. You can also leave thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we'll read them on the show and respond to them. So Holly McLaughlin writes, Sanctuary, I love finally seeing how the universal translators work. So yeah, I think you're right, Claire. This is the first time we've seen them actually like physically be working in a real sense. In Babel, in season 1, they all lost the ability to communicate, but they just said that the universal translators weren't working. So Mark Keiko says, still way behind, about to start DS9 season 1, but I reviewed the synopsis for Sanctuary. It's incredibly relevant, and I guess always will be. The current refugee crisis of the Syrians, Afghans, Iraqis. Seems like there's always people fleeing from someplace. Black Panther had a line about refugees. I haven't seen Black Panther, so I can't verify this. Something to the effect of, refugees bring refugee problems. Fear of the other, we don't like you, empathy burns out. Sure, we care, but empathy has limits. Which is, I think...
I was just going to say, I think his reading of the summary is probably better than if he had watched the episode.
Right. If the
I don't think they're going to hit all the beats you want them to hit in this episode, unfortunately.
You'll be disappointed when you get to the episode
unless there's that big unless you're really into the politics involved of coating somebody with stink vapor.
Yes, yeah. Or reacting very powerfully to a dress that you don't want, but reacting in a way as if you can't believe that that's the dress that you want. It doesn't make any sense. Kyle Barrett writes, Sanctuary, the political exploration of refugees is good, but it feels like it's too little too late. The potential move to Bajor is introduced 32 minutes into the episode, and the accompanying debate is crammed into the last 10 minutes when it should have been the majority of the episode. Also, who cleans up all the skin flakes off the floor of DS9? Are there cleaners, futuristic Roombas, or does Rom get on his knees with a dustpan and brush? These are the questions that the show needs to answer.
That was a particularly gross detail.
It's unnecessary, right? It's all these unnecessary details. I'd retitle this episode "Unnecessary Details."
Well, that one was in the context of Quark reacting kind of prejudiced towards the Skreans and what they were doing there. So I don't know. That one's okay for me, I think.
Is it? Yeah, because I mean,
it does bring up a lot of other questions though. Like, yeah, okay, he's calling out the skin flakes that they're leaving around, but what the hell's falling out of his ears?
Right, exactly. The Q-tips that they're going through.
Blech.
I think that I prefer the character. To me, it rings more true that Quark was more upset that they weren't buying things from him. You know,
yeah.
I feel that's appropriate. The skin thing, I felt it was a little bit odd. Stephen Cobb writes, Sanctuary. Ugh, the immigrant allegory is so over the top. It's painful to watch. Notice that Boner from Growing Pains was in this one. It was fun to see men being ignored and being called too emotional, and a great play on sexism. There was a brilliant scene where they're all around the ops table and Sisko gives a look behind the alien leader's back to O'Brien and Odo. It's hilarious. He does. He rolls his eyes when she says that she doesn't hate men or something, and Sisko rolls his eyes at those two. Neil Brennan, Sanctuary. Love the continued slow burn of the Dominion introduction. Love the translator bit. Love the moral question of the final third with its obvious modern equivalents. Did not love the weird laughing over a dress. At the end, I really wanted the Skreans to declare that they'd be back to take Bajor at some point. Yeah, Neil seems like he liked the episode a bit more than I did. I mean, it's kind of that thing. I like all the pieces. I just don't like the cohesive whole.
That's interesting. I don't think I caught that look that they give. That's kind of that's fascinating. Where it's like you're going out of your way to present this different culture that has a positive view of women running everything, but then you also have your male characters go. Like what are we supposed to be taking from that, guys?
Yeah, it's to me when I saw it, I went back and watched it because of Neil's comment. I wanted to verify it, but it's it definitely seems like it's an actor choice. Like it probably wasn't written into the script, but Avery Brooks definitely sort of rolls his eyes when she's talking about it. It's very funny.
I don't know. I now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, it gets into this weird thing where it's like, yeah. I would believe that would be a reaction that they might give because I've seen people give that reaction before.
Yeah.
But they're giving it to your main Star Trek characters who are supposed to be like really open-minded about shit, so it seems kind of disingenuous. So it's a weird thing where it's like if you're looking at solely from the writer's point of view, you could make the argument that he's undercutting this concept of women running everything.
He's undercutting inequality, right? Which is because they are from a totally egalitarian, equal society.
Mm-hmm.
The characters rolling their eyes are more rolling their eyes at sexism, in a way. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. I guess that's what I mean. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Because if you're looking at the women run everything because men are too emotional, and then having the men all roll their eyes, you could very much read that as if you wanted to, you could read that as the men rolling their eyes because stupid women kind of thing.
They're proving her point in a way.
Yeah, but you could also look at it as them rolling their eyes because they are past that sort of sexist delineation of stuff.
Yes.
So I guess that's fascinating. That's a really interesting way to look at that.
It's true. You could interpret that in a modern interpretation would probably get angry at him for doing it. In the context of the show, it's fair on some level, which is funny.
I think that's probably the best way to put it. A modern interpretation would not be happy with that scene.
Right. Even though it makes total sense in the context of the show.
Yes.
Like on their terms. Yeah, it's interesting. Matthew Rotz writes, Sanctuary, just get them some cortisone 10. These aliens make me want to go over and rip those flakes right off. Anyway, the story. Well, it was okay. I do think it was kind of obvious, natural that they would say that Bajor was home, more akin to saying, no, duh, the first planet. But I also had feelings that this story was akin to the Space Irish episode, Up the Long Ladder from TNG, in many respects, from the sensible women to the layabout fighting men. Interesting. That's true. I did like the conflict that Kira felt with the conflict of religions and self-preservation. Very slight mention of the Dominion. But you think that maybe an entire race's fleeing of the Quadrant may raise an eyebrow. Nah. And in a long, honorable Star Trek tradition, we never hear from this race again.
I wish that Space Irish episode had cribbed a scene from Blazing Saddles where they're like, okay, it's fine. Everybody can come. The Ferengi, the Klingons, the Romulans, but not the Irish.
Well, just wait until later in the Dominion War where the Space Irish prove to be the most effective ground troops that the Federation has to deploy. Joint Mango writes, rest in peace, Andrew Koenig, who he did kill himself, unfortunately.
I looked in that into that very briefly. It seemed pretty ominous. I guess he was had some clinical depression, and he canceled or missed or turned down a bunch of jobs and sold everything in his house, and he just disappeared, and that was it.
Yep. And they found him at a park, I think.
Yeah.
Nick Sergey, Sanctuary. Much as I love the show and as much as I love the premise for the episode, they still aren't landing a lot of these episodes. Universal Translator actually isn't a very effective way of helping the drama and just takes up a lot of time. The writers spend more time trying to push its message with a heavy hand than actually telling a good story of an episode. I'll call it a miss. Don't fear, Clay. The show gets better, believe me. And that's it. Thank you very much, guys, for leaving your feedback. It's nice to get these thoughts going on after we've talked about it. It gives us a little bit of additional perspective and everything. Although we haven't had many I don't think we've had many episodes that have been sort of a schism of opinion about them. Everyone seems to be kind of on the same page, which is interesting for how far into it we are. Let's see here. We've done that. Oh, Clay, we'll give it our rating. Well, there's so much stuff to run through at the end of these episodes now. So we'll give it our rating. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 because I think the concept is solid. It's like a terrible execution of what they were trying to do. So I'll give it a 2.
Yeah, I would say high 2. I didn't find it difficult to watch. I wouldn't recommend it though. So yeah, I'd give it a high 2.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for visiting the sites. I fixed up the Pensky Podcast website. It got hacked, malicious, or compromised, as the Google likes to call it. So I had to clean that up, and I updated everything. It's got new pictures. It's got new stuff. You can go and check that out. You can go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile if you want to support the show. $2 a month. Super helpful, super appreciated. You get extra podcasts. Real Ripe and Real Rotten. Check that out. It's our movie podcast. Clay, do you have anything you want to talk about?
My book Poser is out. If you guys feel like picking it up from Waxwork Comics, you can get that at their website. It comes with a 7-inch record. It's a nice, charming little kid-friendly horror slasher story. It's not kid-friendly. Don't believe me when I say that. And yeah, I'm gonna be at AwesomeCon in Washington D.C. on the weekend of March 30th. So if you happen to be in the area, swing by, say hi, and I promise I won't be too much of a jerk to you and act like too much of a giant star.
All the DC
when I meet our one fan,
the one fan from DC who is shelving himself out right now to get out there to see you. $10 patrons. Thank you very much, guys. You always get your plug at the end, and You are the people who will potentially be guesting on the show. That's the new change to that tier, but you have to let me know. I'm putting it on you. You guys have to contact me. Just don't, if you feel like you're bothering me, that's a normal human response, but you honestly are not bothering me if you want to remind me about that stuff. So Vincent Adultman, Stephen Cobb, Nathan Elliott, Ewan Tibbetts, Decker Sebastiani, Holly McLaughlin, Neil Brennan, Carrier Mobility, Doug Valcamp, Michael Pond, Bradley Killens, Rune Vendler, Jay Stanley, Mike Burnett, Matthew N. Ross, Ben Douglas, Kyle Barrett, Joint Mango, Tarek Latif. Thank you very much,
and if
guys.
you're on the show, you get 30 seconds to say what you like about the episode, and then you have 3 questions you can ask us, and that's it. We don't want you clogging up the airwaves.
I'm just going to cut your mic off, and there'll be just long, awkward pauses where me and Clay are talking over you.
Well, I really hope, I would really like it for someone to do what people do on sports radio, where they're like, yeah, I've been waiting for like an hour, so I really appreciate this. Long time, first time. So do you think that this weekend they have a pretty good chance of winning? Thanks, guys. I'll take the answer off the air.
I appreciate it more than we listen to a lot of NPR radio, and it's just, it's probably just the people listening to it, but they don't ask their question and get the fuck out of the way. They're like, They keep trying to interject themselves into the answer in some way. And it's like, guy, just ask your question and get the hell out of there.
I've always wondered why they don't switch over to like just straight up text or Twitter or something. Because I mean, I guess it's nice that you get people on the air, but a lot of times people, they wait forever, and then they want to. Their questions don't always end up being. A lot of times aren't very good. Yeah. Or you just get into a shouting match with them. At least on sports radio. Anyway,
they always go like, "Tom, you're on the air. Go ahead with your question." He goes, "Am I on the air?"
Yeah. or they go. Tom, you're on the air. And they go, hey, guys.
Yeah. No, Tom, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering, first of all, you guys are so off base. You're a bunch of idiots. I can't believe that you think that. But what I want to say is I think that they should start this guy at first base. What do you guys think? I'll take my answer off the air.
You guys are great. See you next time. Yeah. That's pretty much what radio is. That's why podcasts are great, because I can just cut out all your terrible comments, people. But no.
Yeah, and we can edit what you say to benefit us.
Seriously, if you the $10 patrons, get in touch if you want to be on the show. The space
Guess
is
what,
limited.
Guys? This podcast is part of the Dominion, so get used to it.
That's right. Let's see. Do we have anything else? No, I think that's it. So it's non sequitur time. I guess I can go first if you're you need to think of something, Clay. But let's see here. Everyone, the news is all about Facebook, and because of their Cambridge Analytica thing, and Facebook is generally horrible. So I am wondering if people get a benefit from the podcast having a Facebook page. Just kind of let me know. I if I don't respond to you on Facebook, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's more that I don't want to go onto Facebook. So I might just post things from outside of Facebook. So if that's how you get your podcast feed, feel free to continue using Facebook, obviously. But I might just not respond to you on Facebook. So that's kind of it. It's kind of a downer of a non sequitur, but that is what it is. Glad you have
I've always wondered. Excuse me. I've always wondered what the benefit of having like a bunch of different things is. I feel like I'm kind of coming around the other way.
There's no benefit.
Like when I started my webcomic years ago, I had made sure. Excuse me. I had the Facebook page, I had the Twitter, I had the website, everything I could think of, Tumblr, everything. I would put it out there and everything. But I feel like it just makes you harder to find a lot of the times.
It just splits the audience.
Yeah, it splits the audience, and it makes the number of people you have to respond to not focused, so it makes it more difficult to do it.
Yep.
So, I think, I don't know, and also I hate Facebook. I used to like it a lot, but the past like handful of years, it's just turned into a shit show. There's only so many times I can watch like the same video,
videos,
yeah, or just like listen to people. Man, you ever want to know what your extended family, like older relatives, can be like? Whoa,
yep.
Boy.
Yep.
I mean, most of mine aren't too bad, but like I've seen some from friends of ours where they just where we've talked about it, and it's just like, man, for whatever reason, Facebook just allows you, being given this like platform to say whatever the fuck you want, seems to give you this license to just be a horrible person. I say that as someone who's talking on a podcast right now, but With great power comes great responsibility. You know what I mean?
I mean, the worst. I don't have many friends on it because I deleted the old account. I reactivated it just to get the podcast page up. But there's a correlation between there's a level of. I sound like I'm some sort of elitist. There's a level of like intelligence where the people that I know on Facebook who are below that, I don't think they actually fully realize that what they're typing gets seen by people on some level. Like I have some friends from back home who like never graduated high school, and they are the most obnoxious people on Facebook. Like it's like, and I like they're totally different in person with them. So it's almost like I don't feel that they really understand that this is a representation of them on some level. Like they almost treat it like a diary more than anything.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I actually looked the other day because I don't think I ever really looked at how many friends on Facebook I have. I only have like 350 friends. Compared to a lot of people, that's very low.
Yeah, very low.
And because I like to kind of curate my Facebook friends a little bit more because, you know, Twitter is like a high school cafeteria where you can say whatever you want, but someone might be walking by when you say it, and they're gonna, you know, give you shit for it, even if what you said isn't bad. Not that I'm dropping N-bombs on Facebook or anything, but
Owen Benjamin over here.
But like Facebook is like, for me anyway, it's a more personal group of people that I know. So the stuff I talk about there is going to be stuff that is not necessarily stuff that I want to talk about in a business sense.
Yep.
Or because I use Twitter, professionally more than anything. And I even a lot of like professional creators and stuff who have sent me friend requests. If I have never met you, I am not going to accept that request.
Sure.
With some, I mean, you know, if it depends on who it is, but most of the time, if I have one friend in common and I kind of know who you are, I'm not going to accept it unless I've met you face to face.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's the way to go.
And even with that few number of people in my Facebook bubble, there is still so much garbage.
Yeah.
People just have so many shitty things to say that they feel like for some reason you want to hear.
Yeah.
And
or the algorithm. The algorithms are saying that you want to hear this.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
A buddy of ours sent me a video that his father-in-law put up after all of the NFL like kneeling stuff happened, and it was like this really poorly shot iPhone video of him speaking into camera directly at the Patriots organization, saying how disappointed he was with the NFL, and then burning a shitload of his Patriots gear.
Yeah, sure.
And it's just like, what? Is this what you're doing with your retirement?
I don't only post those videos to the patrons on Patreon. You guys can also check out my Facebook feed.
Can we got to figure out something we can do that with. We'll do a video like that where we're burning like
Star Trek memorabilia.
Yeah, after season 2 of Discovery, we'll just have to have a mass burning of all of our favorite stuff that we paid so much money for just because we don't like the way the season's going.
I'll have to order CBS All Access, print out the receipt that I get, and then burn that or something. I guess.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me. The longer I spend on there, the more it's just like there's a level of, what's the word?
Animus, anger.
Yeah, anger, but there's the obliviousness to what you're doing and like how people are going to receive it, and also like with that situation, the burning of everything. It's like, well, you're not really thinking everything through here. Maybe don't put this out there for everybody to see.
It's one of those. It's a video. You put it up on private. You sleep on it and see how you feel in the morning about that kind of stuff.
Or maybe like shoot it. Sit on it for a couple days.
Put it in the
show
attic.
It to somebody else first, and then when they go, maybe not.
Be very perceptive of how they tell you that it's good. It's good. That's good. All right, guys. I think that's it. So if I don't respond to you on Facebook, don't take offense. But Facebook will mostly be just
don't burn any Pensky file memorabilia if we don't respond to you on Facebook. Although if you do. Make a video of it and show it to us.
You know why I'm saying this is because on Facebook, when you run the page, Facebook does a very good job of being like, a person has commented and you haven't responded to them in 7 hours. It's like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, well, I just want this thing to say 100% because I'm kind of anal about that kind of stuff. Like I want my response rate to be up there, but then at a certain point you got to realize that it's just a computer playing you for a fool. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening to the show. We appreciate it. Check out Waxworks, isn't it? Comics?
Waxwork, no S. Waxwork Records.
Waxwork, okay. Check out that. You get the LP. It's $15. You can buy it, and I'll put a link in the video. Other than that, I think that's it. We'll be back with another episode after this one. I forget what's after Sanctuary, but I think we have another couple before we get back to a solid showing of quality. But anyway, that's about it. Clay, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Guys, we will see you next time.